Hey yo, I am the star in any room that I stand in. I am the standout, you just my stand-in. These bitches copy my homework, that's what they hand in. That's why I'm private like the airports I land in. Life is a beach house, don't let the sand in. I ball in any arena, go let the fans in.
What's up, y'all? I hope all is well. So in this video, I want to go over this Reddit post I happened to stumble across. I was actually going to do some other content and then I found this post. So I was like, well, let me just quickly go over this because I thought this interaction was interesting and slightly triggering as well. So I wanted to do some content on that. So the Reddit post is titled, "Do any other half black, half white girls have trouble getting white men to commit?" And so the original Reddit post is pretty brief, but I thought the response the comments in reply to what she said to be very interesting, because they were extremely gaslighty. And what she actually speaks to is something I've slightly touched on in other videos as well. I would strongly recommend you checking out my video called A Feminist Critique of Light Skin Privilege if you have not already, just to give you more context of my perspective when it comes to this Reddit post that I'm about to go over. And I briefly talk about dating white or non-black men in that video. I touch on a lot of different things, but I briefly touch on that, and that will also give you more context to my POV when it comes to what this girl said. So check that video out first if you haven't already. But yeah, I have a lot of new subs, so just to give y'all a little context, if y'all haven't watched a lot of my content prior to this video, basically, I am a light-skinned black or mixed black, whatever you want to call me, woman. And so I have a very similar phenotype to someone who's, would be half black, half white. So I kind of have spoken about a lot in the past, how it's been as a woman who dates all groups of men since I was a little girl, like basically dated all races. And I'm not one of those weirdos who makes dating outside my race a personality or anything like that, like where I'm constantly talking about it or making it a thing. But the thing about it is that culturally in the United States, so our culture based on history and just the way the black community operates, black women dating outside their race is like a huge thing, and it's been controversial throughout history, and this and that, and a lot of people in the black community don't like it, but it's like a whole double standard there, whatever. A lot of people already know this. So it's a lot of that. So it's not that I make it a personality trait or nothing like that, but I talked about that experience because it has impacted me in my life, because I have noticed getting treated different or weird shit from not only other black people or other Hispanic people, but also non-black people, non-Hispanic people as well, white people, whatever. And so I have had racial experiences when it comes to dating. So that's something that I do think is interesting to point out because it is a real thing. I would also appreciate if you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are not already and the content resonates with you. Welcome. As well as making sure you hit the bell for notifications so you'll be informed every time I upload a new video or go live. I'd also encourage you to check out my Patreon, where you can access old and exclusive content, as well as having early access to new uploads. That will be linked in the description box below. So I like hearing about other women of color talking about the racial and gender dynamics of interracial relationships. I think it's really fascinating. It's an interesting topic, and it is definitely something that needs to be addressed and talked about, especially considering the history of white men intermixing with mostly women of color and the history behind that, and the all the intersections, and there's just a lot of layers there. So recently on TikTok, I've really enjoyed, or even here on YouTube, I've really enjoyed listening to a lot of Asian, whether they be East Asian, Southeast Asian, Central Asian, Indian, Pakistani, Filipino, whatever, you know what I mean? I'm listening to them discuss dating outside their race and how it is in their culture and experiences that they've had, and, maybe internalized feelings or dealing with racism and stuff like that. I find it to be really fascinating. even with like non-black Latinas, this is even a conversation that's even happening on Latin Talk as well. So it's just a very interesting dynamic, and it is a real thing, and there are layers to this conversation. So I'm just gonna be honest with you. I didn't like how people handled this particular situation with this biracial girl. Sorry, my phone keeps going off. This biracial girl making a comment about, her experiences dating white men. I really didn't like how it was handled, and I feel like she was really gaslit. Anyway, let's get into the Reddit post. That's been my long drawn out intro. Let's read it over and I give my analysis. Okay, so the Reddit post is titled, "Do any other half black, half white girls have trouble getting white men to commit?" So she goes on to say, "Hello, I'm a 22-year-old female American, half black, half white. I've had relationships with white men, but I've always had a problem with them not wanting to commit or consider marriage. I've been friend zoned a few times, and I noticed I haven't really experienced this with non-white men. I didn't even think about this until a male mixed friend brought it up. Do any other half black, half white women experience this when dealing with white men, or am I tripping?" So before I get into the comment replies, I want to first respond to everything line by line. So although 22 is young, which is going to be a comment that's brought up many times in the replies, 22 is young. 22 is somebody who has probably been talking to boys and dealing with boys for at least 5 years or so, up until that point, middle school through high school. So yes, 22 is young, but you do start to get an idea of how boys are and how the world works in a gender dynamic by the time you're 22. Yes, you are still a baby adult, and you are still, wet behind the ears to an extent, but you're not completely ignorant to racially and gender wise how the world operates. I mean, there's been studies that show that children understand race and how their group or how their ethnicity, whatever they are, their skin tone, hair, whatever, fits into the world as young as 3 and 4. I mean, I remember being 3 and 4 and having questions about race. So I don't know why people are acting coy and playing like young people don't understand how gender and race intersect, and like we're not constantly getting these messages, especially growing up in the West, of what a ideal or default woman or relationship looks like. And let's be real, people with blackness and people with non-whiteness are generally not in that equation. So I just didn't understand these replies. Considering this is a mixed space, I was a little disappointed with how they responded to her. But so I did want to touch on that. And she goes on to say that she has had relationships with white boys. So she didn't say, oh, that I've always just seen them from afar and never, had a real like relationship or connection. Like, she made it clear she's had relationships with white men, but she's noticed that the issue comes in with them not wanting to commit or consider marriage. And so I completely understand what she means in the context of being a young person and wanting a boyfriend, girlfriend, committed, exclusive relationship. Again, this is something that people in the replies are going to try to play dumb about, but I understand what this girl is saying. Yes, in the modern era, most 22-year-olds, especially in this, social climate and, how them being pandemic babies and, everything that they have been consuming online. And I'm only like probably about 8 years older than this girl, so I'm still in her generation. I can still relate to the same stuff that she's experienced and seen, but I'm a little bit older, so I do have a little bit more life experience as well. So I think I'm in a good place to respond to this. I've kind of had both experiences. But yeah, so although, yeah, most boys of any race are not in the mindset of committing to marriage, what is healthy dating at 22 is having committed boyfriend girlfriend relationships that, not everyone is going to result in a committed marriage or relationship or be long term, but it is good to have that practice of dating around. And just a sidebar, this is something that for some reason in a lot of cultures of African descent is discouraged. They teach the girls to attach themselves and become completely emotionally dependent on the first dude with a kink in their hair that they see. but they teach the boys to be Rolling Stones and that none of the girls are worthy and that they need to keep, just running through women to try to find the best one until they're 45 and old and dusty, and then they decide they want to settle down. That's what the boys are getting, as where the girls are getting this message to commit to the first black dude you meet that, buys you a Chick-fil-A meal and then, become super dependent on him. And if you date around, you a hoe when you're fast and all this type of stuff. And you shouldn't ask them for anything, but you need to be completely committed to just him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just really weird. So dating around and dating just for practice, dating for just experience is really discouraged in the black community. But there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that it's good to date in different races, different groups, different even different socioeconomic statuses, because you see different stuff. You see what you like, what you don't like. Just because somebody has money or has a certain lifestyle that seems nice, you may not feel comfortable in that world. You may not want that for yourself, whatever it is. So I think that that's important and that's healthy. It's healthy to be dating around at 22. It's also healthy to be wanting committed relationships, because that's how you learn how to operate in a marriage. If you have not had at least a few boyfriend-girlfriend relationships, you're not going to know how to operate and do in a marriage. Even if you stop dating somebody, date around, and then come back to another person, I think even that's good. You know what I mean? Like, because then you're really becoming more of a whole person. But yeah, so she's explaining that she has had relationships. It just seems to me like she's having a hard time making them commit to being in a monogamous girlfriend-boyfriend relationship and making that publicly known and, presented as we're in a relationship, we're exclusive, we're an item. That's what I interpreted from what she was saying. And from there, when you are in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, you work towards marriage. So how it's not a chicken and egg situation. So yes, I agree with some of the common replies that we're going to see, that most 22-year-old boys are not in the mindset of marriage or trying to work towards marriage. But at the same time, showing that you're going to commit at least to a boyfriend-girlfriend dynamic, to being exclusive, to being an item, that says something, and you guys can work towards that. Even if you break up, make up, come back, in a healthy way, that's what that is. So I completely understand what she was saying. And then she goes on to say that she's been friend zoned a few times, but this has not been what she's experienced with non-black men. So I thought this was really interesting because, again, I completely related and understood what she was saying here. And this was definitely kind of my experience as well. And I'm going to use two different examples. I'm going to experience examples from myself and also outside perspectives as well. So what I always noticed when I was like growing up, that the guys that were like most like basically just to be honest, the most thirsty, the most vocal about trying to talk to me, like fiending the most, always hitting me up, talking, hitting me up a billion times, talking about I'm trying to take you out, just weird stuff like that. It usually was black and Latin men. It usually was not like white guys. If they even like Latin guys that are like Central American, Mexican, Salvadorian, things like that, even they don't really be fiending. Some of them sometimes, but not a lot of them. And just use, I'm not even gonna get to that, but yeah, not a lot of them. But yeah, like if you are black or you're mixed with black, yeah, it's gonna be clearly black guys are gonna be the most like vocals for trying to talk to you, trying to get with you, things like that. But then you notice like non-black men, they might like you, but they're more like I don't know, they're more hesitant to approach and they're not as assertive. And so this is what I found though, because I have also noticed that sometimes, especially when you're young, this is what it can be with certain men that are outside of like blackness. Sometimes what it is that when you're still young, there is like a social racial element to it, and a lot of people are in relationships to keep appearances. So you might have like white guys, or like in my case, like it was a lot of like Pakistani guys. Like this one guy I used to talk to in high school, and like we had homerooms together, so we would always talk. And then I got his number, so we would be texting and shit like that. And then he gonna tell me, oh, I'm just like too busy right now to like talk to anybody, or like, I'm just like, he was a little older than me, so I was a freshman, he was getting ready for college, and he was like, yeah, I just like, I'm just kind of like relaxing right now, not really talking to nobody, but I kind of feel like he was trying to shake me because he did not want to like I feel like he just socially felt like it was something he couldn't like really pursue. That's kind of how I felt. And like I also noticed like he would only talk to me in homeroom. Like he would never talk to me like outside of homeroom or like around like his people. Like I would wave at him and he would act like, he would like wave, but he wouldn't really ever talk to me. So I always found that like really interesting. So that was like the first time I had noticed that. So I'm thinking it could also be like depending on where she's located, like if she's in a predominantly white area, especially like with everything going on socially, like sometimes it could really be that like these non-black men, they do like you or they would want to be in a relationship, but because they're still young, they're not strong in who they are to make their own decisions and have the courage to be proud. Like, yeah, I'm walking with this mixed woman, or I'm walking with this, Indian woman, whatever, and that's my girlfriend. I'm claiming her, this and that. They still want to keep appearances of their group. So if they feel like the people around them might have their judgments, sometimes it could be that. So sometimes it's not always that they don't want to commit to you, but that they only want to talk to you in secret because they want to keep up appearance. As where if you're black or black Hispanic, clearly like people expect you to, expect black men to be with black women. So it's not a big deal, no matter what your skin color is or if you're mixed or whatever. Like people expect that, so it's not a problem. But people don't expect a black chick to be talking to a Pakistani chick, or some white men, they're still worried about what their family or, the people around them might think about them being with a mixed woman. And, regardless if you're mixed with white or not, you have a white parent, you're a person of color, there's a history between black and white people, especially like I said, location makes a difference as well. So sometimes it could be that. And just courage in general. Like, a lot of people, they're not strong enough to stand to who they are and stand up to the people around them or the preconceived expectations of them. So I feel like it could also be part of that, because that's kind of been my experience. And I've even experienced it with, because like I think I mentioned this, like I didn't grow up around white people after I was in middle school and high school. So the non-black guys I was dating was mostly like like Asian guys, Southeast Asian, or like Central American guys, like non-black Hispanic guys. So it's like same culture, but racially we are different, and there is like a cultural element there. Like regardless of what y'all think, like Caribbean, Afro Latin people don't really get with like Central Americans like that. Like you will get looks. Like when I was dating this Mexican guy, like I would get a lot of dirty looks from like black Hispanic men, like Puerto Rican guys, Dominican guys, stuff like that. Even sometimes Mexican guys, they would heckle him in Spanish, be saying little shit. I don't know if they knew I could understand or whatever. But so even if y'all in the same culture, because there's that racial aspect there, weird shit could still happen. So I definitely get what she's saying, because I've experienced that with like specifically Mexican guys. Like we were talking, I could tell they like me, but they didn't want to make it public. They wouldn't talk to me around their people. I could tell they probably wouldn't be in a relationship, but then years later I know they in a relationship with their own woman and with the women in their community. And I respect that. I understand that, I get that. But a lot of times it be that when you're young, sometimes they're still in that mentality that they can't do what they want and they still care what the people around them think. So I could see where she was coming from, and I could totally get that. And I'm just saying this because sometimes it's not you, it's them. And I know that sounds touche, but yeah, sometimes it's really not you, it's them. And sometimes they'll entertain you, they'll even try to sleep with you. They're and each type of straight man is going to want attention from a woman regardless of her race, whatever. But at the end of the day, a lot of people, they still care about upholding their culture, doing what pleases their parents and the people around them. They don't want to step outside the box and do something different. They don't have the courage and the strength to do that. We even see that in the black culture too. Even a lot of people don't want to date outside their group for the same reasons that non-black people don't. So sometimes it's that also. And like you would think a space for mixed people would understand that, but I just feel like they just gaslit the fuck out this girl. And like I said, she's young, so there could still be boys that's in that mindset that, they're not ready to step outside the box. So I wonder if it's that. And then also with all this racial stuff going on, like you're not taking that into account. Also, he could have a whole like family that worships the Cheeto and it's a Cheeto supporter. And he, who knows what's going on. So it's a lot of moving factors. So anyway, then the OP goes on to ask that she didn't even notice this until a male friend brought it up. So just from reading her comment and how I'm interpreting what she's saying, I don't feel like she's internalizing this. I don't feel like she's taking a defeatist attitude towards this or letting it, hurt her self-esteem. So again, I feel like some of the comment replies were extremely unnecessary. And also, this is why it's good for us to discuss these things and to bounce ideas off of each other, because it does help us point out stuff that we ourselves may not have noticed. I can honestly say a lot of light skinned and mixed men have taught me things that I didn't even think about, and put me onto shit that I didn't even notice. Mostly when I was younger too. Like I'm talking about like middle school age, like stuff that I learned early, just from talking to people. So I can honestly say that that is a good thing about like these forums and even like these networks on social media that we're creating. That's a really positive thing and it's really helpful. And at the same time, so I'm not criticizing the space, so to say, but I do how do I say this? I was disappointed with how people responded to her, and I just wish some of these spaces centering blackness in general, whether they be monoracial blackness or mixed blackness or just mixedness at all, I do wish they were a little bit more emotionally safe spaces for women of African descent. I feel like there's a lot of gaslighting that goes on when it comes to us. And that's something that I've never liked since actually I was a little girl. This is not something I've just started to notice as an adult being on Reddit or being in these forums. There's a lot of gaslighting that women of African descent experience, so I don't really like that. And that was kind of one of the motivations for why I started to focus. Constructed the focus of my channel the way I did in a more like womanist fashion. Is like, what, some of us, this is how we think, so if you think like this, you could come talk to me, because I don't want to feel isolated or feel made to be feel like I'm crazy in other spaces when I'm reaching out for support. And I see this often, and I'm not the first person to point this out either. So yeah, that's something I've wanted to touch on as well. Some of these racial spaces just being safe, and in the sense that it's not gaslighting and just like, people using these anecdotal examples to try to make us feel crazy. I really don't think that shit is cool. Just want to give some brief commentary on some of the comments that I found to be a little bit strange, that I had a take on. So this first comment that states, how long was your sample size exactly? You're young, 22. So if you're drawing a conclusion based on a sample size like 3 serious relationships who are also likely similarly young as you, then it's likely your conclusion is being drawn from a too small a sample size, or that there are other reasons that are not being willing to commit, such as them being young and not ready to seriously commit rather than their race. I didn't like this comment because it came off as very gaslighty to me. And this is something, isn't it funny how this logic is only ever directed towards women of African descent? I have never heard this, because this reminds me of when black women say, oh, black men are not commitment oriented and they are flaky, and unfortunately they leave a lot of women unwed mothers the vast majority of the time. Then people say, oh, well, that's just the ones that you know. Oh, that's just the people you're choosing. That's just the ones the leprechauns dropped off to you. Oh, that's just the people on your block. It's all this gaslighting, all this numerical value. All of a sudden, everybody is a statistical, sociological analyst. It's really weird. So this is something that I see often. So when she's like, oh, how big is your sample size exactly? It's just like, it just came off as really condescending and snarky. So again, this is really disappointing to see in a mixed space. Either this is a white man, I wouldn't be surprised. Who, I don't know. And this is the good and bad thing about Reddit, like I said, because I can't draw conclusions based on how the person looks. But I just wonder why this person is so defensive over white men. It's just kind of strange. But I think this person handled it, the OP handled it well, where they said, agreed here as well. 22 is very young. Actually, I don't know if that's the OP, so let me not misspeak. But yeah, 22 is young, but 22 is not completely ignorant to the race racial dynamics of this society. So I just feel like that's gaslighting, and I don't like when people gaslight young people about their racial experiences. Just because you're 22, you can be 22, and based on your lived experiences, based on your location, time period, phenotype, whatever, you could have experienced way more racism than somebody who's in their late 30s, who lives in a different place, a completely different age, different phenotype, different race, whatever. So I don't see what being 22 has shit to do with anything. But anyway, so then this other person says, I don't know, all of my mixed friends are happily married and one has a kid. It is really hard to find relationship materials in our hookup culture. Just how many single people out here. If person is not serious, leave them. Your worth is best for you. I mean, I understand. I agree with the last part, but I feel like this is the beginning was a little gaslighty as well. And again, this is a narrative that's often weaponized against women of African descent, where it's like, oh, well, I know plenty of black women are married. Oh, I know plenty mixed women that are with a white guy. Oh, it must be you, because this person didn't say that, but that's kind of what they're implying. If they're saying, oh, I know plenty of mixed people that are married to white men, I don't know what you're talking about, then you're implying, well, it must be you. And I just noticed that that narrative is often directed towards women of African descent, and it's often implied that it's you, in the sense that, oh, you're just ignorant, so it's you, or oh, maybe it's something about you, your personality, or it's other factors. But either way, it always comes back to there's probably some inadequacy within you that's leading towards you having this outcome. It can never actually be racism. Like, it can actually never be misogynoir. It always has to be gaslighting. And so this is why I said that some of these spaces, just because they promote themselves as being quote unquote mixed spaces, does not mean that they're emotionally safe or protective or supportive towards women of African descent. I'm just gonna be honest with you. And I love this forum. I think they're doing great work over there. They've been around for like 10 years. This is not me bashing them, shout out to them. But I'm mostly speaking to us, if you catch my drift, wink, wink. I'm talking to us. Like, just be aware when you are in these spaces, protect your peace and your energy as well. And don't let people gaslight you or like change your self-perception or make it seem like you crazy, because people will do that to you because they don't have an answer, or because what you're saying makes them feel uncomfortable. And again, I don't know what demographics these people are from. I'm going to be honest with you. I also suspect that these are a lot of non-black people inserting themselves into a conversation that they do not understand and does not relate to them because they are not black. So yeah, we might be able to relate and discuss things on the terms of being mixed people and of being women and womanhood, or just race in general. But there are some unique experiences that people of African descent, especially women, have, and it just is what it is. Y'all not gonna relate. And so sometimes, yeah, they might not be malicious, but they end up gaslighting you because they genuinely cannot relate, because that's not their experience. But instead of sitting out the conversation and just continually to scroll, instead of adding a non-productive comment to the conversation, they give their little 2 cents, and it ends up in a gaslighty type of way, if that makes sense. So I suspect that's happening here, because I've noticed in some spaces that are like multiracial, in the sense that it's mixed people that are mixed with everything, not just black, mixed with everything from all over the world, even people who are not necessarily racially mixed. Some of them are just like ethnically mixed and things like that. Or even MGM, when you have forums like this, you never know who you're talking to. And so it's positive in a lot of ways, but in other ways, sometimes you need to have a conversation with a more specific group of people, if that makes sense, because then they'll be able to understand and relate to where you're coming from. So that's why Asians have pages, black, white people have pages, Afro-Latinos have pages, things like that. Like, it's not to be divisive, but it's because we have different experiences and needs that we can talk over and discuss. And this comment is an example of how these multiracial spaces can be positive, because this person says, not mixed with the black, but I've noticed the same, not writing off all white people or anything. Besides fetishization, I think some people who would otherwise not be racist have a subconscious racial preference for a partner due to living in a white supremacist society. And I like I like what this person said. I agree. And I do think that sometimes it is maybe a subconscious bias towards Eurocentrism. But as sometimes, I'm going to be honest with you, the vast majority of people, they have a bias towards themselves, understandably so. You know what I mean? Like most people want to be with somebody who's in their culture, who looks more like you. Number one, because it's just socially easier. Number two, because, it's more comforting for themselves. It's familiar, whatever it is. And that's not necessarily malicious. I don't take that offensive. I don't think it's offensive when a non-black guy or a white guy is not necessarily interested in me, but I see them with their group of women. I don't take that offensively or get mad or, get triggered or nothing like that. I respect it. That's what they're supposed to be doing. And, I get it. It's natural. So, it is what it is. So I think that that's what it is sometimes too. It's not that these men don't find mixed women or women of African descent or non-white women beautiful, but they might have their biases, rightfully so, towards their own group. And they might just see it as easier, especially at that point in their life, to be with somebody who is more familiar. So sometimes it's a lot of that. Said, think about it. Who is it easier to be seen with in public? No questions asked. Who most closely matches dominant beauty standards? Who will their parents approve of? What did the material image of their future life partner look like to them when they were young? Probably a white girl. That's absolutely right. And unfortunately, even a lot of men of color have internalized that as well. And, black men have done an excellent job talking about that. But, this is another side of the coin. Sometimes it's an unconscious bias there as well. Even if it's unconsciously not exclusionary, but exclusive in a way, where they're not open to dating other people, but they might want to mess around with you, which isn't fair. You don't get to use somebody like a sexual object, but then say you're not worthy of a relationship. I say stay within your group and don't treat anybody like that. You know what I mean? Like, just stay within your group and treat women with respect and don't treat them as objects or as games to be played. Feel me? Like, or if you're going to date around, do it in a respectful, healthy way, So, yeah. And then this was another gaslighty comment. This person says, I have the exact opposite problem. All my exes were white and obsessed with me. One proposed. When I dated black men, this is the part that I actually really agree with, and this is why I am commenting on it. But she says, when I dated black men, they don't even consider marriage. They hardly want to label the relationship. Let me say that again. She says, when she dated black men, they didn't even want to consider marriage and they didn't even want to label the relationship. If that ain't a word, amen to that, amen to that. And this is another thing. So although I disagree with her coming under this 22-year-old's post and making this comment, I feel like this is mad unnecessary because this is probably like a grown adult woman. So it's like, why are you kind of coming under here flexing under a damn near 20-year-old's post? I feel like that's kind of weird energy. But she actually spoke facts with that other sentence where she said that when you date black men, number one, you already know that they're not considering marriage. If they're not saying it outright, you can tell by the vibe of the dynamic that and culturally that that's not what's being considered. So it's that element to it. And then that's a huge part of it too. A lot of them do not want to label the relationship, and that's because they don't want you to have expectations. They don't want to have the verbal obligation of being exclusive or committing to something, or like I said, giving you expectations of thinking, oh, you're gonna quote unquote provide something. So they rather just not label the relationship at all. A lot of them do this, and this is another thing that gets me mad, why I say that y'all are gaslighting women of African descent, because this is how the vast majority of black men interact with black women. So black women are being caught in these vapid, all of nothing relationships in there that are not even being labeled as relationships. They don't even want to publicly commit or to have to do the boyfriendly things like, maybe helping with a phone bill, paying for somebody's nails here and there. They don't think they should have to show up and do anything. They don't even think they should have to label the relationship because y'all socialize them as women you socialize them to devalue women and to see themselves as the woman and as the prize, even though you don't even equip them with the life skills to be even able to take care of their own damn self. But they're mad entitled to women, and so it creates this imbalance. And so when you're a teenage girl of African descent, you're trying to engage with black boys and trying to talk to them, and it's like, okay, why can't I get a relationship? Why am I going through these, month-long talking stages? And I don't think that people take into account that when that is the imagery that is often associated with women of African descent, or that the idea in the society, not only perpetuated by black people themselves, but also by non-black greater mainstream society as well is that women of African descent are quote unquote strong, but in a long suffering type of way, can endure, will put up with cheating and disrespect, and that you can disrespect or step out on this group of women or baby mama them, and it's socially acceptable. Non-black men are getting that messaging as well, and I haven't really heard a lot of people touch on that, but there it's not just only black men that's getting this messaging that a lot of black women are male worshipers with low standards and will accept a lot and endure a lot from a man. So other groups of men are internalizing that messaging as well and will exploit that, and often do. And sometimes we'll target black women for that. I haven't heard many people talk about that, and I noticed that a lot. I noticed that a whole lot. Way too much, to be honest. So that's an element of that, and that's another aspect of the danger. So people think it's like, oh, you're just complaining about black men and complaining about who they're choosing or what they're doing or how they're acting, whoop-de-whoop. No, this has a domino effect, because this is sending the message to the entire society about how women of African descent can be treated. So that's another just separate part of all of that as well. And I could talk about this in multiple different areas as well, but I won't bore y'all with that. So just before I wrap this video up, the last comment I want to touch on was this really weird one that was like, it was kind of towards the bottom, but it got 15 upvotes. It was really weird. So this person says, this is not a race issue. Many men don't seek commitment for many reasons. Don't think it's your mix. Nothing to do with it at all. You have no idea what happens in marriages. They are not always perfect about love and more. Sometimes they're business deals. And to an extent, I actually do agree with this person. And I do think that you shouldn't, over romanticize marriage or whatever. But I just feel like the people in the comments were completely projecting a lot into her comment. And like I said earlier, I feel like she had a healthy perspective towards it. It didn't seem to me like it's like really stressing her out or like deterring her from living her life or hurting her self-esteem. So I don't understand why the women in the comment section were like getting so triggered and like projecting so much. It's like, no, I feel like you projecting how you felt as a child or as at a 22-year-old onto her, like you taking a lot from her post. But so I do agree with like the last what she said, like you shouldn't romanticize marriages and whatever. But I also think it's really weird to be in a mixed space and then say that this is not a race issue and to completely gaslight her about it being a race, could possibly being a thing of race. And of course, it could be various different factors, but it also could be race. And you would think somebody who I'm assuming is mixed themselves would understand that. Like, it's just kind of weird to me. And that's why, to me, it shows a bias towards women of African descent. But yeah, so it's like, yeah, you see non-black girls, especially when you get to be in your 20s, you see them being in a relationship working towards marriage. But then when it comes to girls of African descent, they telling you, oh, 22 is too young to be expecting a relationship. Why are you expecting commitment at 22? Oh, most boys your age are not thinking about getting married. Okay, if most boys our age, regardless of their race, are not thinking about getting married at 22, why are there so many South Asian and white and even Mexican people that I know that are in their mid-20s getting married, and they've been together since they were in their early 20s. So at what point are people supposed to start having committed relationships and dating? Why is the standard for people of African descent different than everybody else? Because a lot of people get married in their mid-20s. So when the fuck do you think they started dating? Like, the whole conversation is just annoying as hell to me. So I know I'm getting off on a lot of different like topics, but there's a lot of different elements of this that is just annoying to me. I just think that this is just a really weird perspective to take, considering the context of the conversation. I mean, you would think of anywhere a mixed race forum would understand that sometimes stuff is about race, especially when it comes to interpersonal relationships, romantic relationships, that people sometimes do have their weird racial biases. And again, I've just never seen this attitude directed towards non-black women when they talk about these same type of things, unless it's coming from their own community. So yeah, anyway, this is all I had to say about this Reddit forum. Get in the comment section, let me know what y'all thought about this overall topic regarding interracial dating and mixed women, and what did you think about some of the replies to this original post. So let me know.